Hello, hello. Welcome to the first Tomes and Tunes of 2021. You know, some years when I keep a journal, we used to write checks, right? Nobody writes checks anymore. But I know a lot of us, we forget to update the year. And I noticed in my journal this year, I was totally into updating the year, totally fine. But I kept writing December instead of January. It took me like 6 days till yesterday. It was like, wait, why am I still in December? January. Welcome to 2021, first episode of Tomes and Tunes. This is episode 33. We started this back in the spring, and when COVID hit, and I talk about books and swap songs with songwriters from around the world. I am very excited to bring on today as my first guest of the year, Maya Rogers. She and I knew each other a long, long time ago. She is a film composer and also a songwriter, gentle spirit and new mama. And she's joining me from Connecticut. I am, of course, in Los Angeles. So thank you for joining. And let me know where you are. I'm going to bring Maya in right now. Hi, Maya.
Hi.
So nice to see you. Thank you
You
for being here.
too. My pleasure.
Um, so that's your website. Just want to
Yeah,
put that up right there. So you are in Connecticut. It is the evening. I
it
think is
is.
that a
Yeah,
window behind you? I
it
think
is
it's
a
dark out.
window. It's just about completely dark now. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I'm some hours behind you. I got full
yeah.
daylight right now. Um, and welcome to the new year.
Thank
Um,
you. You too.
yeah. So I feel like I want to jump right into something that is not exclusive to women, but very particular to women, which is that you became a mother this year.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, and you are, I mean, as long as I've known you, you have been a musician. I think you've been a
Mhm.
musician your whole life. Am I remembering correctly
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you are
that's
actually a
right.
flute player originally?
Yeah, originally flute player. Well, that's like the thing that stuck. But from like four, my sisters and I were playing instruments. So yeah, for life.
That's amazing. Do they still
Yeah.
play?
Um, my older sister still like sings, like semi-professionally. My younger sister was a percussionist, like in band, and she doesn't really like play, but she's a music lover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you became a composer. You and I
Hmm.
think we might have met because I'm just thinking about butterflies when I think about you. There was a film composition project, I think,
Oh
that
my
you had to do
gosh,
that was called
yes.
Butterflies.
Yes. Wow. I totally forgot about the that like film. Like I remember the title and I remember that I got you to play on a couple of sessions of mine, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a lot of associations with you in the live room and me, and I
Mm-hmm.
was a clarinet player. I'm still a clarinet
Mm-hmm.
player, but but that was I was playing clarinet, and Butterflies was a big clarinet piece,
Yeah, yeah.
clarinet and flute. Are you still composing in that way?
It's definitely taken like a backseat to the songwriting. I think we were just chatting a little bit in the green room. Like, so I went out to LA after Berkeley with that, and as my intention. Um, and it just kind of was really tricky to navigate. How do I like break into this world when I have to pay my rent. Because a lot of the jobs were very like, okay, you need to be an intern, you need to work 40 hours a week for free. And I just was not prepared for like that reality. And so a lot of the opportunities that I gravitated towards were more the songwriting and the background singing. Um, so yeah, my life kind of just like did this really interesting turn. Um,
Yeah, we're shaped by so many factors like that, simply paying
Mm-hmm.
rent.
Yeah.
And that's a great reminder that Los Angeles very much has been structured like that, where
Yeah. Yeah.
to break into the industry, whether it's agenting for film and TV, or writing, composing, and whether it's the film and TV industry or whether it's the
Mm-hmm.
music
Mm-hmm.
industry, there's so much here that's like work for free or for
Yeah.
very little. Start in
Mm-hmm.
the mailroom and work your way up, which
Yeah.
is kind of a
Yeah.
beautiful idea of like start on the bottom and just start,
Mm-hmm.
you know, along with the rest of the people in your class, kind of
Right.
rise
Yeah.
up. But it's also an incredibly expensive city.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, right. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was sort of how you started moving more into songwriting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Huh. Interesting. And then at some point you went back east.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
are you originally from the Washington,
I'm
D.C. area?
from Chicago originally, so
Okay.
Midwesterner. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been kind of all over the all over the country. East
Yeah.
Coast, West Coast, in the middle.
Um, so you were shaped by the Los Angeles kind of rocks in the river, I guess. They kind of
Yeah,
moved
yeah,
you and
yeah, yeah.
away from composition. And I'm curious about this year. You had a baby, and
Mhm. Mhm.
he's 7 months old now.
Mhm. Yeah.
And how does music? This is something that I'm very interested in,
Yeah,
particularly with
yeah.
women, because you see in the music industry um, uh, a disparity in representation
Mhm. Mhm.
among the
Yeah.
genders. And I think that part of it is institutionalized, but part of
Sure. Yeah.
it is because of this, because of, um, when, when it's time to start a family for some
Mhm.
people, it's hard to continue
Yeah.
to perform
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
travel and, whatever it is. So what does music look like for you right
Yeah.
now?
It looks like just a couple of free moments here and there. Honestly, like I've had to become okay with there not being necessarily like a set structured time to do music.
Yeah.
So it's like stealing little moments really. And then I will also say that my husband and mother-in-law are great because they make, you know, space for me to do things like this. I teach an hour a day at a Montessori school, like via Zoom. And so basically from 3 to 5 every day is like my work time, like so I plan the first hour and then I teach. Um, so that, like my mother-in-law, like, well, she's an early riser. So when I'm like dead to the world because we've been up all night with the baby, um, she'll hang out with him and then my husband will work. He's also a musician, so he's, in our music room playing and practicing in the morning and I'm sleeping. Um, so it's just about being like super creative and being okay, I think, with just getting it in when you can, and asking for help. And I haven't, my expectations are not like very, very high. It's like, I just need like 2 hours a day to like work and like get some stuff done. And, I think as Cedar gets older, it's not going to be so intense. I'll be able to do more, and he's already like becoming more independent, like with his playtime, and it's crazy. Like within the last
That's
week,
fast.
yeah, within the last week, he's figured out how to crawl and sit up on his own, and he's like popping two more teeth. He already has 2 teeth. So he's just like really like going for life right now, which is really amazing to see.
He's like, I want to participate in this world.
Yeah,
I don't want to
yeah.
just be an observer,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
That's amazing. So I think your husband is a bass player, is that
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so he's playing bass, writing music, playing
Yeah,
music, and
yeah.
you play flute, guitar, and do you also play keyboards?
Yeah, a
Right?
little
And
bit,
piano?
just, to kind of write, essentially.
Do you have plans or hopes or designs to introduce Cedar to instruments?
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, he's so into music already. Whenever, like, from a very, very small infant, we would, like, set him in front of the bass, like the upright bass, and he would just eyes would just like light up, and he would just like move around and smile and coo. And now,
Mm.
now it's like he just will sit and listen for like 15, 20 minutes. And that's like a long time for a baby to just focus on
Mm.
anything really, but he's really into it. So we know we know that we're gonna, expose him to as much as we can and then just kind of see what he gravitates towards.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think there's something about the vibrations,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Not just like what
Yeah.
you're hearing, but
What you're
what
feeling.
you're feeling.
Yeah.
I certainly feel that as a clarinet player, and I don't know if the flute you're connected to the instrument in a very different way,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I think that feeling of being part of this woodwind instrument
Yeah. Yeah.
had a really big impact on me growing up.
Mm.
Um, and it not so much the listening to the sound that came out of it, but the feeling of the
That makes
sound
sense. Yeah.
internally, right? And I have this picture of Cedar next to that upright bass,
Mhm.
with those vibrations.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
oh, that's awesome. Do you teach music at the Montessori school?
I do, yeah. So I'm the music teacher slash music therapist at the school. Yeah, yeah,
What does that look like? Especially on Zoom, but what does it look like
yeah,
normally?
yeah. Well, normally what it looked like was me. I didn't even really have like a space, so I would just kind of go around to the different classrooms and do music once a week there. And now it kind of looks like kids coming into Zoom and we sing and just learn elements of music. And then for music therapy, I think the head of the school was just really, I think wisely so, just really like we need to have an outlet for the kids to just talk about their emotions and
Mm.
express themselves because this is an insane time. I mean, anyways, they need that, but like particularly now. So we do a lot of just like coping skills and like how do you use music to help you feel better? And it's really sweet. They're not. I think the oldest student is like 11 or something like that. So from very very tiny to kind of right before middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it like a K through 8 sort of age group
it's
or
K through
K
6.
through 6? Okay.
Actually, preschool. So I think the
Okay.
youngest is 3 years old. So if you can imagine a 3-year-old on Zoom, like trying to like engage a 3-year-old, you have to be very creative.
Oh boy.
But yeah, it works. It's amazing that it works. At first, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this,
Yeah.
but yeah, we've adapted.
Well, what about you turning those questions that you might pose to the kids on yourself? How do you use music um, to handle emotions or to
Yeah,
handle the
yeah.
stresses of this year or just in general, like
Hmm.
not just as a skilled composer and musician, but as an emotional
Yeah,
expressive
yeah.
need?
It's funny because I think I could stand to really like remember that that's what it is first and foremost, and then
Mm,
the composing is like secondary.
mm,
But like it really, it's just like I just pick up my guitar and start playing, and then within like a minute or less, I'm just like, oh yeah.
yeah,
This is why I got into this because I just feel like so much better. I feel like
yeah,
myself. I feel like everything's fine. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yesterday while we had insurgents storming the Capitol, I was in here and playing my guitar. And time just moves differently
Hmm.
when you're with music, and it's I think the mind is jumping around less. It's sustained focus on something and
Yeah.
multisensory, and so there's not a lot of room. I mean, you can still think about other things, but there's not a
Yeah.
lot of room to feel anxiety about those other
Mhm.
things,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
It's sort of occupying one or multiple parts of the brain, so
Yeah.
that
Yeah. It's a good way of putting it. It's like you have to be present to kind of like actually really engage with it. And so
Yeah.
that's a good thing because you're
Yeah.
not, thinking about the future or the past. You're just kind of like, all right,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is obviously I mean, I feel like when COVID hit, it was really easy to say this is a really weird time, or at other points in recent history, this is a
Hmm.
really weird time.
Yeah.
At this point, it's like so many layers of unprecedentedness and weirdness and
Hmm. Hmm.
unusualness and all of that. Recently, I found myself thinking about these live streams that
Hmm.
so many people are doing for various things, not just music,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
in general. And I, you know, there's no visible audience. I mean, hi everybody. If you're watching,
Hi.
please comment and let us know where you are. But it's really lovely to have people chime in the chat boxes, and the
Hmm.
interaction is
Yeah.
awesome. But there's not that immediate feedback that you get, like non-verbal feedback that you get from an audience as a musician when you're performing live. You can
Yeah.
see like
Yeah.
whether they're distracted or whether they're engaged, if they're crying, if they're
Hmm. Hmm.
laughing, like what is the, reading the energy, I guess, of the room. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts? Do we need an audience for that? Do we as creators need that feedback, or do we
Hmm.
not? How does
You
it shape
know,
us?
I think yes and no. I say yes because I'll never forget. I think it was. Do you remember John Aldridge? He was like
Yeah,
my one of my
definitely.
favorite all-time songwriting teachers. Well, favorite people really at Berkeley.
He was the voice of McDonald's. Good times, great things
Yeah,
at
that's right. That's
McDonald's.
right. Yep,
Hmm.
that's so funny. Um, I forgot about that. Yeah, I just remember. I can't even remember what class. It was towards the end of my time at Berkeley, like one of the very last classes I took, and he said, "Think about your when you're performing as like a gift, like you're just giving a gift." And it just, I mean, it just took my performance to another level, and like it was never the same. Like I thought about that, and I had a show maybe like 2 days later, and I really really sat with that, and I was like, I love that. And for the first time I gave myself,
Hmm.
like I just gave myself, and it was like the reaction afterwards was incredible. Just like people sobbing, and I mean, I just never experienced that before, and that tends to be. I mean, it isn't always that dramatic, but it tends to be like the. I just felt something from you. That's the reaction that I get, but it doesn't surprise me. It feels wonderful, but it doesn't surprise me because that is what I'm intending to do. Like every time I perform, I want to give you something. Right? So in a way, it's like, no, we don't need an audience, because there's also this thing that I think that happens. It's kind of like a vertical connection. Like, so you're connecting to this something that's bigger than you. Um, and to me, like, that's all I really need. But then, like, when you're performing, it's like people get to witness like the this thing going on, and then there's also the this thing at the same time.
It's
If that makes any sense.
it's on both the X and the Y chord.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
That's an interesting way to think about it. I can imagine that he said that he taught a course. If I can't remember the name of it, but it might have been something like performing for songwriters or
Yeah,
something like that.
something
I
like
have
that.
this.
Yeah.
I took a couple of classes with him. I also really enjoyed him, and I can just imagine that he would have said that in that
Hmm.
setting, and yet,
Hmm.
even if he had said it when I took that class, I did not hear it.
Hmm.
I didn't think about that for years afterwards, and um, that changes everything. It changed
Yeah.
everything when I
Yeah.
started to see music as an offering and as a
Hmm.
gift.
Hmm.
It 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 made all the difference in the world, and I wonder now if he indeed did say it in the class that I took with him,
Hmm.
and I just didn't hear it I couldn't hear it, you know,
Yeah.
um, or if if I was absent that day or
Right.
something like
Yeah.
that, like the most important lesson you learned,
Yeah.
like that's the day
Oh.
you weren't in class. Wow. Mm. Did you ever take a class with Henry Gaffney?
Yeah.
He was
Several.
he was a dear favorite of mine
Yeah.
also.
Mine too. Mine too.
Um, and the first class I took with him, um, I think it wasn't even a class. Um, I think I heard him speak at some
Mm.
event, and I decided right then that I was going to take every class I could possibly take with him,
Mm.
not because I cared or thought that I could become a better musician from being in his presence. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but because he had such a facility with language and it was such a
Yeah.
delight to listen to him
Mhm.
talk.
Mhm.
And I felt like he was, even though we were in music school, and so it was like Hogwarts School of Music, where everything was, about
Yeah.
music, but
Yeah.
he was really about the whole person. Um, there was something outside of just being a songwriter that
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really got from being around him. So
Mhm.
I've
Mhm.
never talked about him before, really. In recent years, he passed away.
Yeah. I know.
Maybe might have been 10 years ago or
Yeah. I
something.
think just about. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he's someone who I definitely miss and treasured.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. He was great.
I love that. I've not had an homage to old teachers in this show before. It's really nice to think about
Mhm.
those two.
Mhm.
Um, so I have to ask you an important question because this is Tomes and
Yeah.
Tunes.
Yeah.
And I know that you have a passage or something to share,
Mhm.
but besides the thing that you're going to share, have you been reading during this time?
Yeah. Admittedly, it's mostly like parenting books and baby-led
Yeah.
weaning and sleep books, but I have been like just like again like stealing little moments here and there. I found this book by chance. It's called Sound Medicine.
Oh, wow.
Um, How to Use Ancient Science of Sound to Heal the Body and Mind. It sounds kind of like nerdy, and it is, but it's also very beautiful and spiritual. Like the author kind of connects like um, just like she's like a neurologist who spent most of her life doing mantra,
Yeah.
um, and she basically talks about how college, like was like a really rough time, like med school, and that's the only time in her life that she didn't do her practice. And like everything just kind of fell apart for her. And then, she kind of brings it back to like, now I do it some more, like she does it regularly. And that's kind of like the seat of her, like the way that her life kind of flows. Um, but it's really cool because she connects like modern medicine and like the Vedic tradition and quantum physics, and kind of like puts them on top of each other so that you can kind of see that they're kind of the same thing, which
Hmm.
I think is really great. Because there's
Who's
like
the who's the writer?
her name is Kurit Chardry. I'm really bad at pronouncing
Okay.
names. But she moved back to India to be with to learn from a teacher, and then opened like a integrative medicine practice a couple of years ago. So it's a fascinating story, but it's also a fascinating read because it kind of taps into like the nerdy part, that wants to like understand why things are the way they are, like in the physical, and then maybe like the spiritual, and then
Mm.
also just like the musical part of you that just enjoys
Yeah.
music. And it was kind of like you were talking about, like the vibrations having like a impact on you. I feel like I haven't gotten to that point in the book yet where she says the how to,
Yeah.
but I'm sure that that's going to be like part of it, like the vibrations.
Have you ever been to a sound bath?
I have, yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
you're making me think about that right now.
yeah, yeah,
Um, mm, I'm intrigued.
yeah,
Definitely
yeah,
intrigued to look up her book after the show, Sound
yeah.
Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
Yeah.
I love that sound has that double meaning,
Mm-hmm.
sound medicine and
Mm-hmm.
all,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Um, um, yeah, we have all these layers of ourselves, and um, it's not talked about very much in our culture in this
Mm-hmm.
way, but I think of
Mm-hmm.
it like Russian nesting dolls
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how each piece is kind of nested inside,
Mm-hmm.
but they're they have permeable membranes, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not they're
Mm-hmm.
not isolated, but you can sometimes just interact with the world from an intellectual standpoint,
Right.
or
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
from an
Mm-hmm.
emotional standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
or just from an energetic standpoint,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like she's kind of talking about how music, um, can move through all these different
Mm-hmm.
layers.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
So what do you have to share with us? Do you have a
So,
passage from that or
yeah.
something else?
Not really. I was kind of looking through it and I was like, this is very heady. um, But I was just kind of looking at my bookshelf today and I saw this book by another one of my loved teachers. Have you heard of Rhiannon?
You did some work with her, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Can you
Mm-hmm.
share a little bit about that? And first, I want to just say hi to Mark from Texas. Thank you very much for
Hi.
being here. And I wish you a very happy new year as well, Mark. Nice to see you. Yeah, Maya, can you tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about what you were doing with her?
yeah.
And
So Rhiannon, oh, she's just like, I mean, what she does is vocal improv, like vocal improvisation. She performs in many different like groups, most famously in the height of Bobby McFerrin's like Voicestra days. So it was a group of like I don't know, like 10 or 12 people, and they would basically just like I mean, this is not all they did, but this is like the heart of it was to go on stage with nothing planned, and because they sang so much together, and they
mm,
had all these like improvisation games and like practices that they did with each other, they would just do like entire performances, together,
yeah,
like improvised. And so I've done her. She has a workshop called Melea Hakawale in Hawaii, like two times, um, and just both times it was just like life changing. And um,
mm,
I would call her. I mean, she's just like a wise woman. She's like a musical midwife or something. Like she just, I don't know. That's the best way I can explain it.
mm,
Just a wonderful teacher, wonderful person, and I just remember seeing her perform in LA actually with Abraham Laboriel. He did like a show. I can't remember where it was, and he had her, and I can't remember who was playing. It was like a trio and her, um, and I
senior. I'm
just
assuming you mean senior, the bass player, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Was it?
senior.
He's sometimes. I bumped into him at a farmer's market in
Oh really?
Hollywood one
Oh,
time, and his wife. They were buying um, squash flowers,
oh, okay,
and I
yeah.
had a little conversation with her about preparation and cooking.
Oh,
But
they are the sweetest.
they really, really are. And he sometimes plays at the baked potato. So I
Right,
wonder
yeah, yeah.
if that was
It
where the
wasn't the
show
baked
was.
potato. I
Oh,
can't,
okay.
I'm trying to think of the venue. It was somewhere in like either Venice or I don't know. But I saw her. I didn't know that she was like the performer. I saw her from across the room and I was just like, there is something about that woman.
Hmm.
I was like, she's just like captivating. And then she got on stage and captivated me even more. And I was like, if this is the last thing I do, I want to work with her. So for years, I would be like, oh, I just want to study with her. I want to study with her. And then finally it happened. Um, Anyways, she has a book. It's called Vocal River. So that was on my bookshelf. And so I'm going to read a passage in her book about collaboration. Should I do it now?
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
So she says, "It's beautiful to walk alone to the microphone with my mind a clean slate and find music inside me that has been waiting for just this moment to be sung. It's an unbelievable joy to walk to the microphone with We Be Three singers, David Worm and Joey Blake, bringing all our variations in life and music experience, culture, age, gender, and all the rest that goes into making creative juice. We stand together waiting for inspiration from the air, from each other, from the audience that sits silent and intrigued. Then one of us starts. We listen, wait, listen deeper, jump in harmonically or rhythmically, or in counterpoint, whoever feels like grabbing hold, and off we go. We follow this thread of music, taking turns holding the reins, listening like owls, jumping in to shift the course, the rhythm, the dance of this piece. And it is working. We can all sense it. Creating music that appears composed and harmonic has shape and lyrics, and has a kind of movement from the beginning to end. There's no leader. We find the way together. No editing, no errors, no need for perfection, no judgment, no time but the present."
I love that inspiration from the air.
Yeah, yeah. She
Yeah, and
talks
she
about
talked
that a
about
lot.
and she talked about the inspiration from the audience as well,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is such an interesting thing. And I guess that's what I've been thinking about lately is like
Mm-hmm.
when the audience is just there,
Mm-hmm.
they still it's like each person, in these days of social isolation, we're not around a lot of people, and so maybe it's made me more thoughtful about the gravitational pull that each person has on the other. Like when we're in a
Mm-hmm.
room,
Mm-hmm.
when we're just standing in, like if you and I were standing together, sitting on a stage or something, having this conversation,
Yeah.
I think that, not just what we're hearing and what we're seeing of each other, there would be this other, you know, thing. I don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
invisible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's, every body has mass. Why, maybe, we each have, maybe it's very slight and not measurable, but a
Mm.
gravitational pull on each other. And so
Yeah.
what is the influence that the audience has on
Mm-hmm.
us, even when they're
Mm-hmm.
not talking? They're
Yeah.
just sitting,
Yeah.
waiting,
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah.
That's called, what is that called again? A river?
Vocal River.
Vocal river.
Yeah. So she talks about her life, and just like nuggets of wisdom, and then there are a lot of like vocal improvisation exercises that she
Mm,
kind of goes through too, and it comes with cards, so you can like pull a card and do an exercise.
yeah.
It's really cool.
Huh.
Yeah.
Were you a vocal major or you were a film scoring
No,
major, I know, but you
no.
were a flute
Yeah, my principal was
instrument.
flute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
But I sang a lot
Yeah.
during school. Yeah.
Huh.
It's actually kind of how and where I found my voice, really, during that period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Have you read this book? I wasn't gonna share this today, but let's see if I can reach up here and grab it. Are you familiar with Free Play by
Yeah,
Bogdanovich?
I haven't like finished it, but we actually have two copies of it. My husband and I both both had a copy. Yeah.
Um, I highly recommend it, but it's related to the
Yeah.
improvisation that
Hmm.
she talks about. I just opened right to this quote that I've been thinking a lot about.
Wow.
And it's, we simply have to have it, crazy it may seem at times. Faith in the rightness of our aim, in the ultimate fittingness of the obstacles, tests, and lessons that present themselves along the way, in the integrity and mystery of our own evolution. I felt like the book is sort of worth reading just to get to that
Yeah.
part on page 148.
Okay. Yeah, I should pick it up again.
I love that. I've been picking up, putting down this book, When Women Were Birds by Terry Tempest Williams. It's a little probably blown out by that light, but When Women Were Birds, 54 Variations on Voice. And it's so funny. It's such a slim book. It's a memoir, and an exploration on voice, but inspired by the fact that her mother, when her mother was dying, she said to the author, "Oh, I have journals. I'm leaving you all my journals."
Mm.
And the author was surprised to find that her mother had kept journals. And when her mother finally died, a month or so later, she went to the place where the mother said the journals all were. And there were 54 journals. Her mother was 54 years old, so there was one for every year.
Mm.
And she opened the first one, and it was blank. And she opened the next one blank, and every single one of the books was entirely blank.
Oh.
And this book, When Women Were Birds, is the jumping off point, is her discovery about the journals and about the fact that they were blank. And it's kind of her musing on voice and mothers and daughters and and birds also.
Wow.
And also the Mormon Church. So she and her mother, and I guess her whole family, they were all Mormon.
Mm.
And it's funny. I've had it next to my bed for years and years, and have picked it up, put it down over the years without completing it, and I can't say why exactly.
Mm.
And then I should say more actively, I've been picking it up and putting it down over the last few months, but I keep getting disrupted by other
Yeah.
reading. But I'm trying to in a dedicated way move through the rest of it. It's really lovely, and I want to read you this little piece about Peter and the Wolf. So let's see here. My mother introduced my brother Steve and me to Prokofiev's Peter and the Wolf. Whole afternoons were absorbed sitting cross-legged on the floor before our phonograph, listening to this musical tale. The minute the record ended, we would lift the needle back to the beginning and listen all over again. I have no idea what Mother did during those hours when we were under the spell of Prokofiev, but I'm sure that was the point. Our time with Peter was her time with herself. Through the authority of Richard Hale's British narration, Steve and I were introduced to the distinctive voices of each character. The bird was the flute, the duck was the oboe, the cat the clarinet, the grandfather the bassoon, and the wolf was recognized by 3 French horns. Peter's presence became the melody played by the strings of the orchestra. Rifle shots were rendered by the kettle drum. Early one morning, Peter opened the gate and went into the big green meadow. On a branch of a big tree sat a little bird, Peter's friend. "All is quiet," chirped the bird gaily, and the orchestral adventure began. What I realize now is this. Within those 30 minutes that took Prokofiev only 4 days to compose, I received my first tutorial on voice. Each of us has one. Each voice is distinct and has something to say. Each voice deserves to be heard, but it requires the act of listening. Peter and the Wolf was also an early lesson on how the balance of nature could be articulated through story. Niche was the specificity of voice. Seeing the duck, the little bird flew down upon the grass, nestled next to her, and shrugged his shoulders. "What kind of bird are you if you can't fly?" said he. To this, the duck replied, "What kind of a bird are you if you can't swim?" and dived into the pond. For my brother and me, the cycle of nature, consciously or unconsciously, was performed through the various voices of a symphony. And if one would listen very carefully, he could hear the duck quacking inside the wolf, because the wolf, in his hurry, had swallowed her alive. Listening over and over to the voices through a family of instruments allowed us to recognize and appreciate the dignity and uniqueness of each living thing in the meadow and the forest. Peter showed us what Mother wanted us to know, but didn't have to say. She may have been pretending to close the door and disappear, but she knew the lessons. Here is the world. It is not a safe place, but however frightening and bewildering life may become, we can survive our fears, grab them by the wolf's tail as Peter did, and make peace with the world. Each voice belongs to a place. Solitude is a place. Mother left us alone to enjoy our own company while she enjoyed hers and reclaimed precious time for herself. When she wasn't living her solitude, she was contemplating it.
Wow.
I loved Peter and the Wolf when I was
Yeah, yeah. Me too. Wow, that's really beautiful.
And I had it on record. I remember just moving the needle and playing it again. And I remember the jacket that it came in.
Nice. I don't remember if we ever owned it, that recording, but I remember loving it dearly. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe something to play for Cedar.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely.
So I think it might be a good time for some music.
Yeah.
Would you be so kind as to play
Of
us a little
course,
tune?
yeah.
And I'll just say to anyone watching, please say hi in the chat box so that we know you're here.
Yes.
Thanks for being here, Jay and Jeff and Dave and Aiden. Nice to see you guys. I'm very happy to have Maya Rogers in today.
Thank you. Well, I am going to perform something that has not been recorded yet, but I enjoy singing it, and it's called Consume. I guess I'll just leave it at that. Consumed. When I move forward, I feel my heart restrained. A ghost of a fire, fuel without flame. All of my life I felt it on the way. So I hold my breath and hope this is the day. I've been close enough to know what it feels like, but I've never had the chance to be consumed. I know it's a wonder, but something I can't see. It's pulling me closer, but is it meant to be? I've never allowed myself the time or space to be overcome, engulfed, or set ablaze. Oh, but I've been close enough to know what it feels like, but I've never had the chance to be consumed. No, and I've been close enough to know what it feels like, but I've never had the chance to be consumed. Oh, 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 the eternal shapeshifter that changes and turns. How can a phoenix fly if she never burns? Still I've been close enough to know what it feels like, can soon know, and I've been close enough to know what it feels like, but I've never had the chance to be consumed. Ooh, sorry. By you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
That was lovely. Sounds like you have a background
I
singer.
have a little visitor, yeah.
That was fun to hear her singing along with you.
Yeah.
Where did that song start? What was the seed of it?
Yeah. Ooh, good question. I think this is probably like something that all artists kind of feel, like you're like close, but you're not quite there yet. Like the thing that you're trying to like grab onto, or express, or just like feel. And I feel like that's kind of like where it came from. Yeah.
Every once in a while you do, right?
Yeah, you do. You do.
And then it's like you're trying to
Get back to that place.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
dream when you wake up and you feel it still
Yeah.
with you, but it's
Yeah.
like it's already kind of receding to the other world.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it's just about that desire to be just completely like, yeah, just like overtaken by that thing, that bliss.
So what is the you in there?
It's funny, I debated long and hard whether or not to put the you in at the end.
Yeah.
I think the you is the me.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I hope you record it, and Mark just chimed in to say that it definitely needs to be recorded.
Thank you.
I hope you do record that
Yeah,
soon. I would
we
love to
will.
listen to it again. Although, of course, I can re-listen to the
Yeah.
the replay on YouTube. But yeah, that's so lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna play a song that's also not been recorded. And it's about the relationship between fathers and daughters, or it's the story of a father and a daughter. It's called The Architect. Let's see here. The architect looks up his plans. New addition, space to expand. He labels his rooms with a pen. Not a shadow of doubt in his measurements. He's got rulers and compasses, T-squares and scales, blueprints and triangles on his drafting table, mechanical pencils, parallel glides, and all of the measures for drafting a life, with a straight line between point A and point B. Oops. There we go. The architect's daughter likes rhythm and rhyme, and finds interesting details are worth the time. The architect can't work the math between poetry dreams and the real straight line between point A and point B. He likes a solid foundation of steel and cement. An industry standard he hasn't missed yet. And she's writing songs, trying to grasp daughters and dads. He's got rulers and compasses, T-squares and scales, blueprints and triangles on his drafting table, mechanical pencils, parallel glides, and all of the measures for drafting a life. He's got light boxers, cutter tools, trimmers and clamps, protractors, razor sets, cutting mats, poster tubes, vellum rolls, erasers galore. And what is this home that he's building it for? The architect looks up his plans.
Wow. That's great.
Losing my headphones there.
That was awesome.
Oh my
I
gosh.
love that. Like I was, you know what I was thinking? I was like, man, either she knows a lot about architecture or she did her research about all the tools.
You know, my dad is an architect, and
Oh,
so
really?
that was the original inspiration for the song. And when I was a little girl, I was just thinking about when I was little. Well, he's no longer a practicing architect. He does. He's kind of, his career's taken, you know, a different turn over the years. But when I was a little girl, my I guess one of like the objects of my life, you know, just like a kind of an important fixture in my vision was his drafting board and his blueprints. And I would use the back of the blueprints to draw and, you know, do my own crayon drawings and things like that. And it was just such a big part of my life. And I was thinking, wow, it's never entered into any song, into any story that I've written. You know, and my dad and I, you know, I love him dearly, but he and I have had difficulties, you know, especially when I was younger, no longer, but when I was younger, you know, he just didn't understand. He wanted me to take a practical career path. And, you know, some people would argue that maybe architecture is not, you know, the most practical of paths either. But I was just thinking about all of that. And then, yes, I was like, oh, you know, what were the other tools that he had? And just started listing them. And then, some research went into that as well.
It's funny. My father-in-law is an architect. So I was thinking about him when you were singing that.
Yeah. I'm just intrigued by architecture and by architects. There's this, probably because of those early days when I had those blueprints, but you know, it's one of those professions that I have never desired to go into, but have a little bit of attraction to, I guess. You know.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, Maya, thank you so much for the
you're welcome. This is so much fun. So much fun.
Yeah.
And it's so great to like connect with you after all of these years.
I know.
I'm like, why haven't we done this earlier?
You know, I left my path as a singer-songwriter and just came back to it a couple of years ago. And your life has also taken a couple of turns. And last year, at the beginning of 2020, my vision for the year, or my theme for the year, or word for the year was connect or connection. And then when COVID hit, it just was an interesting obstacle, I guess, to grapple with. And how to still connect. And I realized as COVID hit that one of the, you know, it wasn't just with an audience that I wanted to connect. I wanted to connect with other songwriters. And I was like, okay, well, how can I do this? So I want to say that maybe, you know, if that hadn't happened, it's possible that, you know, we wouldn't have ended up in this kind of conversation. But because of that, we did.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Before you go, I want to I want to put that back up, and people can sign up for your mailing list there,
Yeah,
right? And they can
yes.
also get your new album, The
Hmm.
Gathering,
Yeah,
over there. You're on Spotify, so
yeah, on Spotify and all the other,
all the
you
other
know.
things.
But I like to point people to Spotify. It's
Yeah.
kind of, yeah,
So there we go. Cool. Well, thank you
awesome.
so much, Maya,
Oh, it's
and
been a
I will see you
pleasure. Thank
backstage.
you. Okay.
Take good care.
Too.
And thank you all for listening. We are going to be here next week, same time, same place, and that's where you can find the link to the next episode. It's always going to be the same link. That's for YouTube, found.ee/TomesAndTunes. And next week I have Mary Casiello up. She's a New England songwriter as well. And so I'm very excited to have her. And what else can I say? I'm just so grateful to have had Maya Rogers. There's her website one more time. And thank you for being here. Mark, thanks for chiming in the chat box. That's really fun to see you, and Happy New Year to you all. I will see you next week, same time, same place, for Tomes and Tunes, episode 34. Until then, take good care.